good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, and, Disembodied Beard John, and Kiki, who is plopped sniffing shoes instead of saying hello to you, and, yeah, there's Justin. Justin is with us in spirit. Sorry for the late start today, guys. It's just been a couple of days, if you know what I mean. Ugh. Nomad Zeke, resubscribe for 47 months. Insane, you're almost at your quadruple sub-anniversary. Almost, not quite. Hi everybody. We're talking about what we'd do if we win the lottery. Yeah, I don't play the lottery. I'm not bad at math. I'd rather try to be a best-selling author. I think I have a better chance. Actually, I know I have a better chance. I think it's at least many years ago. I'd have to look up the current stats, but 1 in 100,000 people is a best-selling author. I don't know if they're counting that like across the entire, like, you were once a best-selling author, so you count or whatever, but you know. But that's a lot better than the lottery odds, so I'm taking them. Right, Papa? Right, Papa? Of course, best-selling author doesn't mean that you make a lot of money, right, Bubba? That's a payoff. You make a decent amount of money, but you're not like a super duper setup for life. No. Papa is here. Hey, Papa, do you want to say hi to everybody? Would you like to get up? Would you like to get up? Come on. Yay! There we go. Who's a good doglet? Who's a good doglet? Good girl. Yeah, good girl. Good girl, Kiki. Good girl. Yep, you got a Kiki. She came up to commiserate about being no, you're never going to be a best-selling author, especially not if you offer your teeth like that. No, authors don't use teeth. No. You silly girl. No. No teeth. Nope. Yeah, mouthy puppy is regressing puppy. So, barky and mouthy. Very barky and mouthy. Hey, you fuzzbutt. Okay, now you're being a silly. Let's go. Yep, no, now you're being a silly. Let's go. Yeah, okay. Good girl. Yep, you can stay in here, but you gotta not be in here. Alright. Alright. Nope. Go settle. Go settle, Papa. Go settle. But yeah, the lottery. I don't know. It's never been my thing. Never been my thing, Papa. I would rather be successful off my own work and circumstances that I can control. But I know that not everybody is there, so it is what it is. Somebody wins. Somebody wins. You need a lottery win to get one of them, yeah. You were born in a really expensive area, Kurtiko? I take it. I was born here. and we, this is definitely an expensive zone. Although not, like, super expensive. We're not in, like, Palo Alto Hills or whatever. Like, I regularly look at, like, houses in my area, like, up in the mountains a little bit, and you're staring at, like, $10 million, $30 million. It's insane. Beautiful view, though, and beautiful houses. But then I'm like, what would I do with all that anyway? I really need just a little hut on the side of a hill. I don't need a 6-bedroom, 5-bath, extravaganza. Oh, yeah, every second house is now B&B because they've got a, yep, that makes sense, Kroniko. Okay, I'm back. State of Confusion is cheap. Everybody can afford that. Right? Oh, God. All right. It's a day. But let us figure out what we're going to do. We're going to do some gold. That's right. We're going to do some gold, and we want to go pretty yellow with it because Cathy here is pretty vibrant colors. In fact, I might even do a glaze with like Saffron Sunset or something over her gold once we've got it all set. So let's mix up our colors. I'm going to grab my rich leather. Oh, that's right. I was mixing everything. I'm going to cheat, guys. I'm just not there. I'm just not there today. I know I can mix this color exactly by mixing my cyan, magenta, and blue, and I am totally, like, not into it today. Oh no, and my magenta's in the other room, where I've been doing experiments on a contrast paint. 1 second. Need to grab that magenta. So I want a contrast paint for my Tyranids, for my little guys. And so instead of mixing my Night Sky Indigo every time, I thought they have very few light colors in contrast paint, but one of them is a light blue. And so I got it, and I've been doctoring it, and I've got it to this state now. It's actually much more purple than you're seeing it on the screen. Maybe I can get it to, yeah, it is more purple. It's just not showing up very much. But essentially what I've been doing is, and you can see it's still transparent. What I've been doing is adding in clear magenta, which with contrast paints, you don't want to add a color that's really high opacity. So if you're trying to tune a contrast paint, you've got to go for pretty transparent. Since I'm going for purple, magenta is the clear choice. Haha. And so the problem here is I need to load a lot more into it to get it as purple as Night Sky is. And then, yeah, State of Denial is even cheaper than the State of Confusion. But then I also am using, for the black, I'm using gray liner. And the reason that I went with this is that the liner blacks, if you remember, are transparent. They're much more translucent than our normal high-density black pigment. Our high-density black would, like, wipe this out super fast. But I would also lose that transparency that I want for this to be my base coat wash on my Tyranids. So, yeah, this not only paint alchemy, but paint alchemy regarding Games Workshop contrast paints, which is a rarity. We've never talked about this before. But yes, so if you do get a contrast paint and you want to change the color, like, first of all, make sure that you're starting with a fairly pure pigment. This is pretty much a phthalo blue when it starts. It's a pale blue that's pretty icy. I'd probably say it's a green shade phthalo. And it's lighter, right? So I know that I have a lot of room to tune it. With a lot of the dark ones, you just really don't. If you have a really dark contrast paint, you may find it hard to change it in a direction that's appropriate without adding too much coverage. Because, you know, the whole point of contrast paints is that they are translucent. They show your primer through. So you got to work with that. So here, adding these, eventually I hope to get it close enough to Night Sky Indigo that I can just use this for my termagants. So yeah, so that's what, and here I'll just do a step just to show you guys. So I've been adding just 1 drop at a time with the gray liner. And I thought about putting some agitators in here. I need to find my agitators. They're around. I've got a bottle of agitators somewhere around here. I could also try to use something like Nuln Oil, but I think I'm just going to stick to MSP here. So you can see that, you know, it's getting there. So let's drop, yeah, let's do 1 drop. And let's do 3 drops of magenta. You can see how it spreads. The magenta is such a weak pigment, such low diffusion compared to blue, that you're just going to have to plug a lot of it in there. So I'm hoping that I hit a point, and then I just shake like a crazy woman. And I don't really need an agitator, to be fair, because this is so watery. This contrast paint's just so watery. And this particular contrast paint in particular is pretty watery. Ah, now I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. I feel like I'm getting that purpley tone, and I need it to go a little darker. But yeah, so I'm getting there. So I know I'm making progress, and when I check, my paint is still really transparent. You can see how see-through that is. Like, you can see the bubbles clearly. You can see the shine, right? So it's falling off the side of the bottle really well. I'll probably have to test it at some point just to make sure. And I could test it on a little piece of card just to see the color. But yeah, I'm not necessarily looking, I've got to be careful because I don't want to lose the transparency. I'm adding opaque paint, so that is a danger. So that's really, 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 it's really, really thin. So I'm not in danger at all, I would say. Oh, much lighter, huh? Yeah. Well, that's because, yeah, you can always add another coat. So you see how little this actually affects the card. So actually, I have a long way, like I could pump a lot more pigment into this, because I do want it to color a little bit the surface that I'm putting it on. But I'm getting close, and where it's pooling, it's looking pretty good. So yeah, so when you're adjusting this stuff, Mac attack. But yeah, so if you're ever looking at tuning contrast paint, because you absolutely can, especially if you have one that's really, really transparent. Same goes for GW washes. If you wanted to take Null Oil and make it into a dark purple, like a purple black wash, you could. Just add some, like, Monarch Purple, probably. Or add magenta, and clear blue, and you'll tune it. But you've got to just go a little bit at a time and understand that with some of these paints, even one drop, you saw how much it affected it when I put even one drop of the gray liner in. So even though it seems like you need to add a lot, go very slowly. You're going to be much happier tuning it to exactly where you want it. But yeah. So that's what I'm up to with my little paint alchemy at home. When you understand how pigments and mixing work. Yeah, I'm getting really close there. I keep feeling like maybe just couple more drops of the gray liner. But yeah, having the transparent pigments totally works. As I watch how this dries, I'm going to get an idea of how much it's going to color. Because I want to just, ideally, I want to just put this on right over the white primer. So, yeah, I'm playing with contrast paint, Bryce. I'm trying to, I got the Arctic Glacier, or Pilar Glacier, and it's normally a really light blue. And I've been adding clear magenta and gray liner to it to make it closer to Night Sky Indigo, which is my wash for my Tyranid termagants. So essentially I decided, why not? I want a whole bottle of this. I don't want to have to mix it every time. I want to just be able to work with it right out of the bottle. So I'm just playing with, I've just shifted it now much more toward the purple. You can kind of see much more toward the purple and toward the dark, so that eventually I'll be able to just use it and have a whole bottle of it. And I'll know how I mixed it, so I'll be able to just get another bottle if I really want to. Who is asking about pink metallic? Oh. Ah, okay. Random simple pink. Yeah, it could be that. It's you can't really accidentally get metallics into a paint, just so you guys know. Like, adding metallic to a paint is actually a pain in the butt process. You would never accidentally do it. Yeah. Yeah, it's much more likely to have been a promo paint that just didn't, like, go, or we had extras of it, and so we just, went through, relabeled them as samples and went through it that way. But yeah, you don't, like, the only way you get a metallic oops is if you are trying to do a particular metallic paint, and we don't normally have a metallic pink, so that's not the answer. But if you're trying to do a regular paint and you, like, accidentally, as you're reading formula lines, maybe you use the formula on the line above or the line below, because you're kind of distracted and you're not, like, focusing. That's the only way you really get a metallic oops, is because sometimes you can do that because the lines are pretty small. So if you're not reading across the formula and you accidentally jump up or down a line, you could add too much black, and that's impossible to come back from. So that kind of thing. Yep. Actually, Mac, I'm okay with these for contrast paints because I do actually want to paint out of the bucket on this one. So for me, normally, yeah, if I and I don't use other, like, okay, I do use some other companies' paints, but I don't actually transfer them. Like, even the Chimeras, I don't bother. I just know how to work with the bottle they're in. And the Chimera paints, to be fair, I add, like, I'm not afraid of adding water every once in a while, so I don't think they're going to go bad as far as, like, their flip topness. But yeah, I mean, you certainly can. And back in the old days, when I first started at Reaper and started making MSP, but I was still using some Vallejo, I did transfer my Vallejos to the Reaper bottles with agitators, and I preferred those. Because the Vallejo caps are just too easy, they were too easy to fly off, you know, and get your splork of paint all over your palette. So yeah. So anyway, last thing, just to wrap up, for those who came in later, if you're trying to change the color of a contrast paint, it's absolutely doable. You want to go slowly, and you want to use pigments that are more or less translucent, or you're going to add too much coverage and lose the very qualities you're trying to maintain in the contrast paint. Because they're usually, some of them are quite borderline as far as like they have just enough translucency to work. The dark red I have is like that. So you don't want to impact that at all if you can. So now you can get around that a little bit if you have a little bit of room by getting their contrast medium and just adding a little bit more medium if you get a little high coverage. But if you're really inexperienced with that, it's too easy to go too far the other way and screw it up. So I would say go with transparent or translucent pigments. MSP has plenty of them. The clears are your friends here. And like I said, if you need a transparent black and you're not afraid to gray out the color a little bit, gray liner's your friend. So yeah, any of the liner colors really, but I would use, if you were going with a brown, I would use brown liner rather than Rogue Shadow. Rogue Shadow has higher coverage. So you actually want to reach for the paints that do not have huge coverage. So that is just, yeah, you did, Pendrake. Yeah. Yeah, it was either a test batch of that, or it was just that they had extras of the pink metallic. What happens sometimes in Reaper, because we've got so much room and so many buckets of paint, and they go everywhere, is that sometimes we'll just have a tub of like a promo color that accidentally gets missed, and then somebody goes underneath the table and goes, "What's this bunch of paint?" "Oh, it's the promo color from 3 months ago." So then instead of like, you know, it's already passed as a promo color, right? So you just relabel it and put it out. Yeah. Yeah, they make holders. You can even 3D print one, Mac, if you've got a 3D printer. There's at least one, because my ex had, he used these a lot, and he actually printed out a bunch of holders to keep them from falling over. I'm pretty good about it, but yes, if you really do have a problem with knocking over these bottles, then definitely do so. Definitely either print something out or transfer it to a Reaper bottle. I'm just looking for a way to avoid cleaning my palette. Like, I hate, like, when I'm painting every night, then it's like, I just, like, it feels like I'm cleaning palettes all day. And so, yeah, I'm just, like, trying the lazy method here. And I'm pretty good. I'm actually very neat when I paint. It's a weird day where I actually knock something over. It's a very weird day. So let's get our gold going on here while we talk. But yeah, so there you go. Contrast paint lesson for anybody who cares. I think it can be fun to tune these guys, like, because now that I'm like painting my army, especially, I really want to have a speed base coat, and that will satisfy my speed base coat. I sold another book yesterday. Like, I'm just here and there now. I think my book is finally getting, like, some organic traffic to it. Either that or people are watching these old streams and, like, learning about my book for the first time. But yeah, I sold a book. I'm like, selling a book every week, every 5 days-ish. I sell more if I run ads, but obviously that takes money. And I've kind of leaned off the ads because I'm planning to run a bunch of promotion when West of the Moon is released. So that is where I'm at. Yeah, that was when they did the metal fruit colors were when we were duplicating pro paints. You use it to highlight dragon scales, Kerniko. If you mix it with a little bit of your red for your red dragons, mix it with a tiny bit of clear red and use it for that. It can pop the edges of those scales. You love painting red dragons. Why didn't you figure this out? Hooked by page 4. Awesome, Bryce. Awesome. Yeah, well, the new book comes out, I'm aiming August 24th. Should be out. I'm moving right along with editing, despite having had a couple of, like, lousy days that were totally distracting and full of errands that I had to run. But now I'm back at it. after I get my Patreon stuff done today. And yeah, the book is, it's coming along. It's coming along. Getting my gold mixes done here. Yes, and there is my thing. There's my things. For anybody who's interested, you can go to my author site and you'll have links to Barnes & Noble and Amazon where you can find the book. I need to update some stuff on that site because now I've got an actual release date for my second book. So, and then it gets real. Then the procrastination has to end, and I have to commit to what I'm writing in August, September. Whether I'm going to do a fun little thing and start my cozy fantasy series, which will be fast, or if I'm going to do my responsible thing, which would be to start North of the Wind. But I don't really believe in shoulds, so probably. Yeah, volume 3, yeah. You'll get to it, Mac. No hurry. No, volume 2, Twistonoma. Volume 2. We have only the first book is out right now. Volume 2 is in August. Volume 3 has actually been started. I'll take that back. It has a beginning, but I'll have to review the beginning and see if I need to rewrite it. And then, yeah, I'm trying to do them every 6 months or so. 5 to 6 months. The first one is more like 5-ish months because I already had both books written for the most part. But then it gets real and the rubber has to hit the road. And I get to see how fast I can actually write. And, you know, it might be a little longer for book 3, but I don't know. I don't think so. Kind of a standalone, yeah. I mean, there's still, if you look closely, as the books progress, there is an overarching plot line. But most of the overarching plot line is like just this realization of coming to understand how the world works, right? Because they're, as far as magic and the nature of it. There is a little bit. I just haven't decided how epic I want to take it. So there are things that will, you know, touch on like the continuing story of the world, if you will, from book to book. So yeah, even as a standalone, it still will advance your knowledge of how magic works and how things are, and you know, you'll meet a lot in book 3. You meet a lot of entities that were only referred to in the first, a couple of entities that were only referred to in the first books. No, I'm much more of a cozy writer, Bryce. Okay, so think of the books. I'm trying to think of a series that's like read a lot, but that you guys would be like, it's kind of Redwall. Like if Redwall had been written in chronological order, it's kind of that, where each book, you know, although Redwall, he changes up the characters and the timelines and all that stuff. But suffice to say that each book will have familiar characters in it and that their personal stories will continue to evolve. So it's, but each of the later books should be able to be read and enjoyed by itself as well. I went too thin with that. Curses! Curses. Don't you hate it when you go too thin with your paint? And then you have no layers? Oh, nice, Fancy! Sweet! I'm so happy. I'm so happy you got sleep. Doesn't it feel great? It feels so good. Yay, sleep. Oh, no. That's why I'm doing these kind of standalone-ish books, Bryce. Like, I didn't want to get into that trap, because it is a trap. And I think we'll see if I stick to this, but that's why, by the way, this is why Neil Gaiman has actually written an essay on why he doesn't write series. And it was because when he was doing the Sandman comic, it was just like so painful because everybody's like, when is it going to get finished? And so he had firsthand experience with writing a series and readers like demanding that it be done like now or yesterday, and how bad that can get if as your series gets longer. So he doesn't write series for that reason. Oh, I don't go anywhere like that. No, my books, I'm very cozy. Like, if you had to throw, like, I actually fit right next to T. Kingfisher in her young adult type books, like A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, you know, I always get that title mixed up, but you know which one I mean. Where they call her grim cozy because she's got dark moments in her books, but she doesn't ever go overboard with extreme violence, and she doesn't ever go overboard with, like, with sexual content. Doesn't even touch on sexual content. So, and that's right where I sit. There will be violence, but it'll be like fairy tale violence. Like, I'll touch on it, but I'm never going to, like, show you the viscerality of it. I'm never going to dwell on it. So I'm going to find a way to put it that makes it clear what's happening without showing you all the blood splatter, because I don't enjoy the blood splatter, or the really visceral stuff, right? There might be some splattered blood because that's poetic. But you know what I mean, right? I actually edited some, like a little bit more. I had a scene in the first book. It's the one where Valamon and Ash take on the trolls when they're going for the ferry. And that scene did get a little too gore-tastic, and I did scale it back before I published it, because I wasn't aiming for that. And I had to remind myself, not aiming for that. So yeah, so I fit right in with T. Kingfisher's young adult stuff. I like grim cozy. I think grim cozy is a good way to put it. And with these books, with the Bear Kings books, that's where I'm going to stay. That's my niche. Doesn't it? Grim Cozy is a great fairy dragon name. I agree. But yeah, so I'm not into the graphic violence either. I think that, physical danger is something that my characters definitely get into, and in a fantasy world, it's something that is omnipresent. But I don't get too dark with it, and I don't, it's there, but I don't dwell on it. Like, my characters are focused on getting past it and avoiding it. As best they can. I like how in cozy mystery and in cozy fantasy, although I think cozy fantasy has yet to hit a height of its own because it's very new, but the emphasis is on solving problems and solving puzzles and solving mysteries. Like, it's more that's where the focus is. It's not on physical battle, and it's not, you're not showing a ton of hideous murders, like some mystery series do get pretty graphic. You don't do that with cozy, and you're allowed to be a little quirkier, right? And I do get a little quirky, definitely. My characters are quirky for sure. At least the supporting cast. The supporting cast sometimes gets quite quirky. But I enjoy that, so that's what I do. So yeah, every writer writes what they're going to write. I do have ideas for, like, my epic fantasy would be for adults rather than if I ever write it. And I have, like, there's a trend right now in paranormal, where you have older female protagonists instead of the young ones, and it's more of like a midlife thing. And I kind of enjoy that stuff too, so I could write something like that. Actually, my little Fae book that I wrote, I guess it's a Fae portal fantasy, or I guess you would call it that, urban fantasy portal. That actually was like that. The character's in her 30s and still living at home. But yeah, so I like to mix it up, and at some point I'll probably write stuff that's less YA, more adult, but it'll all be fantasy because I love fantasy. And it'll all have my kind of particular feel. All right. Okay, in movie terms. Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, for me, violence is there to provide a threat level and a sense of danger and suspense, which I think you need with adventure, right? And I do like adventure. Like, I guess I used to read as a kid. I read a ton of Clive Cussler, Raise the Titanic, and other stuff like that. And he usually doesn't get, you know, he's more about like the oceanography and the treasure hunting and all that kind of thing. I always liked that sort of book. I don't like the books that get too grim, too visceral, too elaborate with the violence. So I like a good adventure story. So that's what I tend to write. But yeah, so I'm taking my Amazon ads course now. And I've come to the sad conclusion that Amazon still does not understand my book. Oh dear. I do so much better when I run category ads than when I run auto ads. Like auto ads depends on Amazon understanding your book and your book's metadata and like your past sales and stuff. And I kind of screwed that up because, you know, a lot of you bought my book, but a lot of you also buy all sorts of different books, right? It's not like all of you read, you know, particular fantasy authors. So Amazon is very confused about my book right now. Yeah. Right, exactly. See, I just don't enjoy it, Shadow Raven. I want the story. I want the characters. Yeah, I figure there's just enough sad in the world that I don't need it in my fiction. All right, so we're going to lighten up. Let's get closer so we can actually see this. So we're going to lighten up the upper surfaces. We're going to keep that shadow, these shadows down here. Yeah, YA fantasy is a booming genre, actually. I didn't intend that, you know, that wasn't part of my targeting when I wrote these books. I just wanted to write these books. I didn't actually write these books as YA. I wrote them as the books I wanted to write, and then, you know, realized that I would be shoved into the YA category because my protagonists are younger, which I'm fine with. You know, I have a friend who really did not like the thought of writing YA and just, you know, kind of felt that it was a little bit lower class than adult, and I didn't agree at all. Because there's so much really good YA out there now. Like, there's a lot of really good young adult fiction. And most of it's read by adults, to be honest. A lot of adults read YA. Because they don't want all the graphic violence and stuff, so I respect that. I'm one of them. But yeah, there is a lot of YA fantasy. I haven't read too much of the recent stuff. I do like T. Kingfisher's books. I can recommend her for sure. She's actually a different, like, dark thriller fantasy author writing as T. Kingfisher for just certain of her books. But there's, and some, you'll find that some established fantasy or urban fantasy authors are also writing YA these days. So some names you may recognize from the adult fantasy genres, you will also see are writing for young people. That's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm aiming for, Turgeon. Like that's you have nailed exactly what I aim for with my books. It's like taking elements from real mythology, real folk tales, and just creating an entire world based around it. That's that's kind of my thing. Like that's kind of my strength in a way. Because I love springboarding. So I love taking an idea and then iterating a fresh feel to it that I like. And so yeah. And I never understood why more writers didn't do that. Although, I mean, technically, Stardust, a couple of Neil Gaiman books are like that. The Dream Hunters is not based on real mythology, but it's inspired by real mythology, and it's set in Neil Gaiman's world instead, the Sandman world. And then, who else does that? Robin McKinley is a good one for that. There are a couple others. I'm trying to think. But yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I like. Because I'm like, I like the feel, I like the story, but I want to create my own world around it. Because world building is where I'm at. That's why I like creating D&D worlds. Because I like taking the D&D like universe and then creating a world around it that takes those things but shifts them so that they're still recognizable but different. That's why eventually, well, Queenmaker technically is set in a D&D-esque universe. Because I want it to be more, it's a lightweight effort. I'm not creating an entire really complicated world with it. Although the magic system is coming along pretty well. Yeah, I almost stopped listening to the Cory Doctorow book because of that. There's one scene, although he's skillful at getting away from the violence while still making the extent of it scary, but it was still a little bit much for me. And so, but that was the only scene in that book, the new book, the Red Team Blues. Which otherwise, it was a fun book. So I'm glad that I kept listening to it because there was only that one nasty graphic scene. Just putting a little additional highlight here on the little front of her loincloth. I feel like I'm still a little blurry. There I am. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Cornico. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Once if you've experienced some of that stuff in real life, you lose the taste for it in fiction because you understand just how real it can be. Yeah. Like, it ceases being an escape, right, at that point. Oh, that's funny, Cornico. Except it's not, because I understand it, right? Because I had to walk out of the room during Game of Thrones, the series, because I loved so much of it, but the violence was too heavy. And so, like, if I could get a version of Game of Thrones without any of the violence, or without, at least with only brushing over the violence, and then the rest of the books, I would enjoy the series much more. That said, Gurm writes dark because that's what Gurm is drawn to. And so, sadly, it's not like Gurm... Writers don't set out to do this stuff to titillate or to... Well, okay, good writers don't. They write what's in their hearts, right? Gurm has a pretty dark mindset. He does not like happy endings. He's not drawn to them, and he likes the dark. So that's just the way he writes, sadly, for those of us who are really, like, affected by it. YA nowadays is a changed genre, Fancy. YA dystopian, especially. I mean, starting with Hunger Games and everything that sprung off from it. But YA does not. YA is some good reading now. Okay, there's still some bad YA out there. That said. Oh no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like YA has evolved into a real good genre, Fancy. Um, all right, so let's get to the back of this hill, doing the same thing. So what we're doing here is we're highlighting the upper part more. We're making sure we have that shadow there. We're putting an under reflection in, even though on this little part we haven't done that yet. The under reflection or the reflected light is never as strong as the main highlight, so you don't go up to white with it. We need to get just a little bit right there. And down here, I did bring this close to white on this bottom part. But otherwise, the main light is going to be boop, boop, boop. And then you're kind of creating kind of a blend, but you're keeping your upper surfaces lighter and your bottom surfaces generally darker, except where you get your reflection. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, and that's fine. Like, like, the thing to understand about writers and readers is that, like, Gurm is okay with you not liking his story. If it's too much for you, it's cool. Like, but it's the way he had to write it. He had to write it that way because it is his story, right? So it's just the way it is. The fact that it got wildly popular is what it is. He's lucky. He knows he is, you know. But yeah, he couldn't have written it any other way and been himself. He's written even, okay, if you could imagine this, he has written even darker things. So that's the one thing I told him. I'm just like, my problem with you, with your stuff is that I like happy endings. He's like, oh, I hate happy endings. I'm like, I know. So yeah, it is what it is. And it's okay. It's okay. Everybody is different. Everybody's different. Like, a lot of people might, will not like my stuff because it doesn't have the sex and violence they want. I mean, I have a person in my writing group who doesn't like Brandon Sanderson because he's never going to write sex scenes. I hate to say this, but it's true. I'm sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus. But everybody's so different in their reading tastes, right? Because some people would stop reading Brandon if he started writing sex scenes, and other people would, start reading him, and it's just weird. No, I mean, if you like the violence and stuff in movies, that's cool too. If you like slasher movies, like, more power to you, Fancy. It's just, I can't do it. Because I'm such a, wilting lily. The problem is, guys, it lies in my childhood, but I didn't watch TV very much. And so I never got desensitized. Like, in the 80s, there was a lot of talk about how video games and TV were desensitizing people to violence, right? And I definitely found that was true. Like, my friends could sit and watch a very violent, movie, and it would upset me so much I would have to walk out. And, oh, you don't like it, it's just tolerable. Yeah. So, yeah. Like, you get a certain level where you're just like, that's all right. I'm really sensitive to it. So, for me, it's never something I'm going to dwell on. That said, I think somebody was just saying... Yeah, the Red Wedding was pretty awful. Yeah, actually, Quindy, I'm kind of with you there. Where if I read it, I can read it, although I still am not real comfortable with it, but I can just skim across it if I'm reading it. In a movie or a TV show, it's in my face, and I can't get away from it without walking out. So that's, I feel like, kind of the thing. Because I can tolerate a certain level in books. I don't enjoy it. Love score, yeah. Tell me when to close my eyes. Yep. Yeah, I have a group of friends who pretty much would tell me, like, when they're like, with your Anne filter, you should not see this movie. Oh That was funny. My college and post-college friends knew. They knew when it was too bad, when it was going to be bad for me. They got a sense of it. My movie rules. Anne's movie rules. Actually, probably my favorite Gurm is a totally different series, and it's much more kind of whimsical and fun. Although it has a dark, it always has, there's always darkness, but she has a series of short stories that's collected in a book, and it's called Tough Voyaging. And yes, there's T-Rexes, yes, there are psychic cats, yes, there are all sorts of things, and yes, it is science fiction. But there's Haviland Tough is an honest space trader who likes cats. So how is it that he's become the owner of the last seed ship of Earth's legendary ecological engineering corps? Anyway, it's fun. It's all about like it's kind of it's serious sub theme is human population growth and like how humanity can like really be acted to the detriment of its environment. But it's also just a fun story about a guy who eventually, gets some psychic cats. So it's here. Tough Voyaging. TUF Voyaging. It's a collection of his short stories about Tough. And it's fun. It's actually the most whimsical I have ever read from Gurm. And I enjoy it. So I have the book. I have the collection. So if you want a Gurm without sex and violence, that's just kind of a fun romp through a sci-fi universe with genetically engineered monsters and like horrible villains trying to do things to just an honest space trader guy who kind of lucked into having this really powerful genetic engineering ship. It's fun. It's fun. It's good stuff. Yeah. Some people really like that gritty, emotional, shocking stuff. Like there's something they honestly do. It feeds part of their soul, right? And that's okay. Oh, over the top. Oh, my. Oh, dear. Yes. And that's true, Twisted Oma. Yep. That's why the first Alien movie is scarier than Aliens, the sequel. The first Alien movie is horror. The second one is action-adventure. I love the second one. I can't watch the first. This also goes back to the famous quote from Steven Spielberg, which is that Jaws is scarier because we didn't show the shark. Like, if they'd shown the shark earlier, Jaws would not have been as scary. Oh, the cover's different. Yeah, probably. I got that one years ago. It's probably a decade old. Usually publishers will switch up cover every 5 or 7 years or so. Sometimes every 10, depends. Because it'll make the book a little more fresh. Cover conventions change over time. I'll have to change my covers eventually too. I'm hoping that by the time I do need to look at changing my covers up, I will be able to afford an illustrator who can kind of do the covers I originally wanted for the book. But we'll see. Yeah, see, Aliens is good. Yeah, and Jaws is a great movie on multiple levels. Yes, agree. Yeah, Aliens is one of my favorite all-time movies, too. I like action-adventure, and I like Raiders of the Lost Ark is up there, right? And, but I sometimes, the Lord of the Rings movies are up there. They're obviously action-adventure, right? Like, Fellowship of the Ring is, really right in my sweet spot as far as it goes. You can have fighting, you can have violence, you can have danger, you can even have a character dying, but it's not like eviscerated, right? Yes. I think AI art can be somewhat formulaic. I mean, I don't think it's going to wreck the art world. Like, some people are very doom about it. Very doom. Very, very. But what happens... Actually, I saw a great analogy about AI stuff on my Reddit, writers group Reddit. And they're like, imagine you just discovered plastic. And you were like, holy crap, this is the best stuff ever. We can make it into any shape we need. It doesn't degrade. It stays around forever. It's really neat. You'd want everything made of plastic. Then after a while, you'd really get used to just seeing plastic, and you'd get kind of sick of plastic, and you'd want stuff made by a real human again. So AI art is... You think it's cool. Some of it is very good. It's like, it seems neat. You're like, wow, a computer made this. This is so cool. I can just type in commands and have it make anything. But then after a while, you start to see the similarities between AI, different pieces of AI art. You start to really see, and your eye starts catching it, and then it doesn't feel fresh anymore. And then you look at human stuff and you realize that just the little idiosyncrasies in a human's work are what makes it fresher, right? Makes it unique. And I feel like, and it's not like AI art is ever going away, just like plastic. It's here. It's a part of our lives. But there will always be like a place for artists to produce their work that transcends that just the level of rote execution, right? Right, and that's why artists hate it, Fancy. If I had worked for 20 or 30 years to develop my distinct style as an artist, and then a computer came along and ripped it off and could just duplicate me with no effort, how would you feel? Yeah, Vic. So that's why there are now lawsuits against the AI companies from writers, and I'm sure one from artists is coming. Because it directly impacts, if it can duplicate what that person worked hard to do, then it directly impacts their livelihood, right? Or has the potential to do so. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how this all comes out. But I personally feel that AI art is pretty enough to look at, but kind of soulless. And lacks the nuance and the individuality, the individual touches that a human artist does. But that's me. I would always have a human do my covers. I would never do AI. Mostly because I like working with an artist to kind of who kind of gets the vision of my books, right? I love my current cover artist. And mostly what I see on my self-published Reddit is writers who have zero money that are using AI because it's free, right? To produce some sort of cover for their books. Yeah, and that's where it starts getting really scary there with identity theft and stuff, right? How long is it going to be before you can produce a sound file of somebody saying something they never said? So yeah, it's just, there's so many, AI is going to throw such a monkey wrench into the legal system, you guys. Oh my God. There's so many funky... It seems fun until you look at all the weird implications and things you can do with it that are, not good. And then you're like, ooh. It's a Pandora's box. I feel like AI is a Pandora's box. Yeah, you still have to guide it, right? I think to get a really good AI book cover, you usually have a designer, right, who's doing it for you. Maybe you pay them a little bit of money, but they can do it much more inexpensively. Or maybe you train yourself. on it. I tried to mess around with AI art, and I quickly just was like, too much of a time waster, and I couldn't get a good result out of it without some time put into it. So I was like, not worth it for me. I was more curious than anything. Sorry, a little bit of flashing there on the bottom of that sword hilt. But I'm not a doom and gloomer. I just think that this is humanity's latest Pandora's box. And we're going to have to figure out how to utilize it. Well, kind of, except that, I mean, big publishers aren't using it in general that I know of. They're still, like, using actual designers. Although it is good for just, like, the iconic covers that the corporate stuff tends to like these days. I like covers with actual art on them. So, but yeah, I mean, it's fair. Just use it if that's your thing. I'm not into it, though. I would always rather work with a human artist. Probably because I am a human artist. And because I've saved up, because I saved up a seed fund for my writing, so I don't have to go looking for the cheap option. Although I certainly am going through that seed fund. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we've got that same kind of thing. You're bringing up your brightest highlights, and you've got the upper level painted lighter than your lower level is, and then we got to bring in that reflected light on the underside of there. Oh, AI is being used for journalism all over the place. Oh boy. There's a book about this. Cory Doctorow, again, Cory got double mention on my thing, but his nonfiction book, the Choke Point Capitalism book, talks about how, like, journalists are, like, the jobs for journalists in big media are, like, just doom spiraling because so much AI is being used. And stories are just repeated over all these, they're just reiterated over all these news networks. So, like, if you want, like, more human, quirky, interesting news, you have to go to a news source that is actually employing journalists and not just taking whatever stories come off the wire service. Yeah, it's funny. Yes. That's why Amazon started cracking down on what they call low-content books, Thormel. Yeah. Well, they're Amazon is slowly hunting down those books. When they realized it was an epidemic, they're getting it's much easier to get banned for doing that sort of thing these days. So yes, that threat has been realized and is being somewhat responded to. There. Okay, so there we go. We got that gold. What else we got? We got to do shoulders. Shoulders. Yeah. But yeah, it's getting to the point where you're sick about hearing about AI, but it's the can of worms has only just been opened. Ah, well. Yes. Yeah, right. So that's what I say about Pandora's Box, Shadow Raven. Is like the laws, the precedents, and everything about this stuff haven't even been set yet. Like, we've got a long way to go to figure out how to regulate and what is okay and what's not okay. And so I'm just going to go and try to do a little bit of highlight at each at the top of these little guys. This is technically a cylinder, but it's so flat on the cylinder that I'm not sure I want to paint it as one. So I'm going to try to at least highlight the top of each of these little cylinders, or these little bands of thing on the paint. really nice to Siri and Alexa, yeah. I'm not boycotting anything that uses AI. I think that, like any tool, there's good and evil uses for it. It can be very useful for writers who are trying to like do a basic outline fast. I just tend to I've never, as a human, I have never been drawn to the quick and easy fixes in life. I'm much more drawn to like actually learning to do things myself. So AI doesn't have much attraction for me. Because I have a conviction that I could always do it better myself, and so I will, because better matters to me. But it doesn't matter to everybody. Like, so we're just going to kind of stylistically, we're going to start popping some highlights in here. I think I just lost my mixing brush. I did. I have to fix it. Yeah, right. Well, that's why you need more legal, like, we need to figure out parameters, right? My point is AI can be useful for some things, and that people are pushing it to be useful to try to make money for themselves, which is what humans always do when something comes up. New technology, new thing. You know, I'm just waiting. I'm probably dropping my books out of Kindle Unlimited after West of the Moon has been out for a bit, maybe by the time I do North of the Wind, because so many people will steal your book and put it up for free on a different site, or put it up for money on a different site, but under their name. Pirating is real with books, especially once you get even a little following. And if you do that if it happens while you're in Kindle Unlimited, Amazon will ban you unless you can get the pirated copy like taken down and acknowledged as a pirated copy. I don't want to mess with it, so I'm just going to take my stuff out of KU. Because even people who aren't like selling a lot of copies get tagged and grabbed for this sort of thing. Fancy. Yeah. Yeah, I think AI could be really cool in a lot of different situations, but I'm just essentially not using it. Right now, it's easy to avoid AI for me. Just don't use it. All right, so we've got just this, but we don't have the brighter yellow tones yet. Now I have to figure out what I'm going to be doing. Yes, yes, they do, Turgeon. Because you've violated Kindle Unlimited means you have to be exclusive to Amazon. So when their bots or their people spot a copy of your book on a different platform that isn't Amazon, they will essentially ban your book. They'll just yank it. And then you've got and good luck getting hold of a real person at Amazon to help you. So yeah. Honestly, if you're using AI to create concept art, I mean, that's a thing, fine. I don't see something really wrong with that. It is what it is. It's what you need, and whether it satisfies that requirement. All right, so just a little bit more yellow. I don't have much room here to do anything other than like a little bit of highlighting. Sometimes you just don't have the room and you have to simplify a lot. Yeah, it's the easiest thing to do. It all, like, yeah, it's what you're gonna do. Just picking up some of the real bright stuff. There we go. So we've got some highlights up there, and that's almost all I can do here. It's an all Amazon. Oh, it does, except it doesn't. You know, viable appeals process is like, you can go through it Amazon, but it may take them forever, Turgeon, but it'll take them forever to get back to you. And trying to get a hold of a real human to talk to instead of an automated process that gives you no updates and makes no progress, and in the meantime your books are disappeared. Like, it's just not worth it. I am dubious about whether KU is for me anyway. I wanted to give it a try, but it honestly doesn't. These days, as more and more people use it, it doesn't pay. It pays less and less. So when you're only getting $1.30 for your book, if somebody reads it all the way on all the way through on KU, it's like, well, the base rate that you should be getting for writing a book is like $2 a copy. That's like the benchmark that writers will tell you. So you should at least make $2 a book. So Kindle Unlimited does not make that for me at this point, because the problem with Kindle Unlimited is that it's one big pot of money, and then it's split according to the number of page reads. So as more and more people read on KU, and as more and more authors put books on KU, the pot gets split smaller and smaller per page. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll try it again at some future point. But you've got two choices as an author. You can either be hyper vigilant in searching for your own work online so that you can always find the pirated stuff before Amazon and do a cease and desist. Or you just don't care about pirating and you just don't go on KU and you treat pirating as free advertising. I'm kind of inclined to do the second. Yes, that's like, I have mine. I make about $3 from my books major, because you can set pricing, but you have to end up with pricing at a level that's still like industry, right? Still okay in the industry. So like Ingram's, to do those hardcovers, I don't make much on those at all because they're super high quality, and I don't want to price them to the moon. Ingram's is just, producing hardcovers through Ingram's is just expensive unless you're doing bulk. Ingram's, but it was the only way I could get a dust jacketed hardcover, so I did go that way. And it's also the only way my books can get into like Barnes and Noble and libraries if libraries want them and stuff like that. So I did Ingram's that way, even knowing I wasn't getting a very good rate. And it's all about your goals as a writer. But yeah, so. But when you're reading books about how to price your books or articles, usually the minimum that you want to make per book is $2. Traditionally published writers make very little, even less than indies. At least Amazon gives me a 70% royalty if I price within their limits. Good luck getting even a 20%. I think it's like 10 or 15 if you're traditionally published. I don't know. You get the advance when you're traditionally published, but yeah, it's hard for creatives. I mean, really what you're looking for is, there are a ton of readers out there, right? As an author, and $2 a book looks really good if you've got 1,000 people buying it, right? So it's all about slow growth and growing your audience and putting out more books, and keeping your name out there by putting out more books. And it's a long haul thing. It's not a short thing. But yeah, writers don't make very much generally about their books. Oh yeah, exactly. That's just the thing. That's just the thing, Brace. That's just the thing that there needs to be regulation and laws, and some of these tools need to be made a little bit harder to access and stuff like that. But it is what it is. It's going to develop as we go, and hopefully, I think the world is now realizing what a Pandora's box we have opened, and so we'll see how it goes. But I'm not going to panic about it because I can't do anything about it really. So. Yeah, I always kind of admired Jeff Bezos' wife, and I always wondered kind of, like why she was with him. And then the minute their kids were out of the house, she divorced him. I'm like, yeah, that's about what I. But I don't know. I don't know these. I mean, okay, so the thing about people with lots of money is sometimes they're just divorced from reality. I won't say, I don't know any of these people personally, so it's not right for me to talk down about them. There we go. Little highlights, tiny highlights. But yeah, at most, Major, if you priced your book like up, like if you priced your book at your ebook at $9.99, you could make $7 a book, but nobody would buy it because that's higher than the general going market rate. Like in your genre, you have to look at the pricing in your genre. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people are just kind of out of touch with some stuff when you're well off. You forget what it's like. Yep, exactly, agent. And to just be suspicious of anything weird coming out of left field. There we go. All right, so we've got shoulder pads, we've got a lion, we've got fringe, we've got that. Let's do our glaze. We're at the 11 o'clock mark, but I went on late, so let us do a glaze to intensify our gold over all surfaces. I thought I had a saffron sunset in here somewhere. Did I remove it? I hope I didn't. But I can't tell. Let's see, where are we? I've got a lot of oranges. I really thought I'd kept saffron out here. But now I'm not seeing it. Dang it. I kept orange brown. Kept burnt orange. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Well, I guess I'm going to mix something up then. I want, that's highlight orange. I don't want that one. Just kind of looking around to see what I can use here. I think I'm going to use, no, not that one. Explosion orange. All right. It does, doesn't it? It sounds like a tropical drink. So marigold yellow and saffron sunset are really good for glazing gold. And so what I'm going to do is kind of like create one by mixing explosion orange and lantern together. Yeah, if I ever do become a best-selling author and have real money, I always think back to how poor I was in college. I want to stay in touch with that reality. I spent a lot of time in my life having very little money. Reaper was really the job that turned it around for me in my life. I don't know what I would have turned out, how my life would have turned out if Reaper hadn't found me and offered me a job and I hadn't accepted. So I'll always be grateful to Reaper for that. And I try a lot to remember, because I'm doing good now, right? But I try to remember how it was when I was getting collection calls all the time. Because like many college students of my age, I got loaded up with debt in college and then had very few, like, very low paying jobs. So yeah, I try to always touch base with that in my head. If I do become successful as an author, like I would love to become successful because I'd love to do like classes and offer writing workshops and painting workshops and stuff like that, right? Something that you need money to be able to set up on your own. But I don't ever want to lose touch with people who honestly cannot like take time off work because they're just stretched that thin or stuff like that, you know. Money insulates you, I think. Crocus pollen. Bye, Crowley. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yeah, I don't keep up with the forums either. It's too much media is too much social. Oh my. So social, much media. I'm having a hard enough time keeping up with my new Amazon ads class. I'm like, oh, I have to like put aside 45 minutes to watch the video and then another half hour to do the homework. And I'm like, but I need to get all this other stuff done. And then the new Diablo season launches today, right, Quindy? Solidarity. I'm thinking about trying a Necromancer, Quindy. Thinking about trying that Bone Spearmint Necromancer. All right, so we're going to get this down to a glaze. Now, money is a tool like everything else, right? But that's what I would do with it. Like, I would really like to be able to organize, like, a painting competition or... okay, so let's put this glaze over here. So putting that glaze over there, just see how it makes that more rich color. I'm just doing a thin layer. I'm going to probably have to re-highlight my whites, but overall, that's how it looks. We're going to do another Necro, but a different build. Yeah, the Bone Spear sounds fun. I like the idea of ricocheting bone splinters. And it's supposed to be good. So I'm kind of tempted. Like, I'm tempted by my Druid too, though, because the thing is, I can finally play a werewolf. It seems like there's a really good werewolf build. Like, I can finally do my Stormwolf, my electric energy werewolf, and it works. So I'm kind of feeling like maybe I should werewolf it up this expansion, or this season. So again, just a light glaze. See how that yellows up everything? It looks more intense than it'll stay, but it does make her... You can see the red, yellow, blue more. It makes her gold more intense. Yeah, I really want to do... I've wanted to play a werewolf in Diablo ever since the game launched, and I just was defeated last time because none of the werewolf builds were very good, at least not without a ton of uniques that I never got. So there we go. So that intensifies your yellow, and all we just did was take a very orangey yellow and do a glaze over the top of everything. And then just go back and pop your highlights with your white because you've essentially glazed them down a little bit. Hey guys, look, Cathy's done. Like, I think I need more on the sword. Like, I'd like to do a bit more on the sword. I'm not happy with it right now. Still with minions, yeah. I think when they say that, the imitation, they're talking about, at least, you know, the people that, if I give people the benefit of the doubt, imitation in the fact that somebody has so inspired you, you know, that you want to work, that your idea, their idea inspires an idea from you, but it still needs to be your idea, right? Or, I mean, I don't mind, like, if, like fanfic, I think fanfic falls under the sincerest form of flattery. I mean, people aren't, these days mostly, people know not to try to sell it because they don't own the rights to it, you know, but they are still out there writing it just because they love the world or the characters that an author created, and I'm okay with fanfic. I think fanfic is where that imitation as sincerest form of flattery can come in. I am not an author that would ever get offended if somebody told me that people were writing fanfic based in my world. I would be like, cool. Oh, the patch nerfs. Yeah. Yep. The interior is painted blue. Twisted Oma. Yeah, the patch is pretty brutal. Although my bare pulverized build is still okay, and I might level as that. And then switch to werewolf. But yeah. Sorry for the Diablo talk, everybody who doesn't Diablo. Today, I'm hoping to get that video finished for all my patrons about mixing with clear colors and how to gain coverage without affecting the color too much by mixing in other things. Some of it will be familiar, but some of it will not be familiar territory. So hopefully you all enjoy it. If you're on my Patreon, which is Patreon/PaintingBig. I'm going to get my little paws highlighted more here. That's the under reflection. I like that little lion on her chest. It's cute. Get our white, and the white I want to hit again all the areas that I had. So yeah, you have to re-highlight after a glaze, but it's not that much pain in the butt. And you gain a lot of vibrancy to your color by doing it. Yeah, I mean, I've told, back when I started competing in mini painting fancy, there were a lot of painters who were scared to teach because they were convinced people would steal their talent, their secrets, right? And I had to, like, because of my experience with art, and obviously you know the same, you know, you could have every tool that X artist has at their disposal and study their style, like backward and forward, you still wouldn't be able, you wouldn't be them, right? You're still going to lay down the paint slightly differently. You're still going to have a different, you know, color sense. You're still everything, you know? Like, unless you could hold the paintbrush for them and it still wouldn't be a perfect copy. And plus, you know, any person that's going to be trying to do that is probably going to spin off and develop their own way to do things anyway. If you're that good that you can copy a famous painter like Kaha, chances are you're going to be like, you know, I like this, but I think I would like to do something a little different. You know, you're going to iterate, and that makes it yours. So I would never, this is why one of the things I recommend people do is copy their favorite painters. You can learn a lot that way by trying to reverse engineer a paint job that one of your favorites did. And you should never, like, think that it's, like, cheating or anything. It's not. There's an earring here I want to highlight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could believe that. Jesus, I believe that. It's creativity, right? Any creative endeavor. It's like everybody gives their own stamp to it. And that's what makes it cool. It's that unique spin on something that gives you the sense of the person behind the work. That's the great glory of art and creativity, right? And we're all drawn to different aspects of art, and we all execute differently. Yeah, exactly. It still takes practice, yep. All right, guys. Yeah, I think we've got our highlights here. I'm going to pop a little bit more highlight up in the bottle here. Also, doing that glaze helped with the getting more of a yellow tone onto these little tiny bottle details, which is great. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Looking, oh, I think I forgot to glaze back here. Alrighty. Boom, 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 boom. A little bit more. See how much more yellow that makes it. Once it dries, it'll be toned down a little bit. Everything always looks more vibrant when it's wet. It's just like if you have trouble remembering that, you just think about how rocks look more colorful underwater, and then once you take the rock out and it dries, it goes to that whitish color. Same with paints. When you put a glaze over something and it's wet, it's going to look very intense and it might scare you. You might think you've overdone it. Just wait for it to dry. You're probably fine. And I need to start closing up the house because it's going to be up to 85 today, I think. So I'll need to make sure my windows, I've got this window open right now. I need to close it up. All right, so that intensified our gold. And now we are done with our Cathy. Now we just need to, oh, I guess technically I need to figure out if I'm doing something with her eyeballs. And I would like to work on the sword a little bit. I feel like it needs a little bit more shadows. It needs a little bit more drama. It's not quite. This side's a little better, but it's hard sometimes when you've got that groove going down the middle of the blade to get it looking right, especially from the top. So I think I need just a little bit more shadow. I don't have time to do that today. So we can think about what we're going to do for basing. She's got bricks. She's standing on bricks. So maybe I'll put her on a base and do more bricks and we can paint them in different colors. So I haven't really done bricks. We could look up all sorts of like different brick pattern colors and like do one of them on this and mix colors for it. That'd be fun. And we can sneak some of Cathy's colors into them, which would be fun. All right, guys. I have made up the time that I started late. So tomorrow, on Friday, for our Friday edition, we are back to our anime elf. I call her anime elf because she has such huge eyes. We are back to this. Remember, we are going to start, we're going to work on highlighting these leaves, and then we're going to start the leaf pattern on the back of here. So we'll start using those cherry leaf kind of leaf patterns on the back of the cape and see what we can do. All right. Yeah, I hope you all have a great day also. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for discussing and just generally being awesome. Yeah, I have a lot to do today. I gotta stay focused in today's CrossFit. So, yay! Oh, it's the off week for Reaper Live. So, y'all just have a great day, all right? And we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, everybody.